So does the opposition party's argument that the budget being presented ahead of the elections will be an attempt to influence voters and hence not provide a level playing field to all political parties hold water? To discuss that, we're now joined by TS Krishnamurthy, the former Chief Election Commissioner of India. Mr. Krishnamurthy, appreciate you joining us here, sir. 16 political parties, opposition parties, have written to the Election Commission and the President seeking that the budget be postponed because they believe the government could announce schemes that could influence voters and hence not provide a level playing field. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, as far as the Model Code of Conduct is concerned, certainly it says that there should be a level playing field. But it doesn't mean that the central government can be non-functional during this period. All that I would say is that while the budget could be presented, they should not announce any specific scheme for those in respect of states for which the elections are going. If it is an all-India matter and if it is well within the jurisdiction of the union government, as per the constitution, they have only to ensure that they do not present any specific schemes in respect of the states in respect of which the elections are to be held. So I hope it has to be understood, because we had in earlier instances allowed the budget to be made provided it is doesn't have any specific appeal to the voters in these states.
But if I may interrupt you, sir, there's a fine line there, and the argument that's being presented by opposition parties is that, yes, the announcements that you make may impact voters across India. But for instance, if there are agricultural SOPs that are provided, then you have crucial states like Uttar Pradesh and Punjab going to the polls. These are largely agri-dominated sectors. So while it may not specifically be for UP or Punjab, it could stand to influence voters there.
In fact, it is a very fine balance one has to strike, and I suppose Election Commission and the government can have some kind of a dialogue on this as to ensure up to what limit they can go in the budget. And after all, the election is to be held from 4th onwards. Whether some of these things need to be deferred till 4th, I do not know. But then, as far as I am concerned, a central government has its own jurisdiction, and so long as it ensures that the fine line is maintained between the state powers and the central powers, and that it does not appeal to a specific set of voters, it should be possible. You can't make it totally non-functional.
That's a valid point that you make, that you cannot make government non-functional. But there is a past precedent, sir. Now, the Election Commission seems to suggest that it is still going to address the query that's been raised by opposition parties. The government seems to suggest that 1st of April has been decided. There is a finality as far as the budget date itself is concerned. But there is a past precedent where the budget was, in fact, pushed to March on account of elections. So if we're talking about past precedents, what will the Election Commission look at?
I do agree with you. That's why I said there must be a dialogue between the Election Commission and the central government to ensure that there is a proper understanding on this so as to ensure that they do not violate the Model Code of Conduct. So they may not go into the individual specific proposals for the budget, but they can certainly draw the broad guideline within which the central government can operate as far as the presentation of budget is concerned.
My final question to you, sir,
after all, the result is going to be announced by March 14. I think after March,
that's right,
some of these things could be even taken after March 11th. So they have to draw a nice balance between these two, and I do hope that the government and the Election Commission will have a proper dialogue and arrive at that Lakshman Rekha in this regard.
So if I were to read between the lines of what you're saying and this Lakshman Rekha that you believe the Election Commission must draw in consultation with the government, you're essentially saying that the budget on the 1st of February should essentially just be a statement of accounts, expenditure and revenue. And if there are any other schemes or announcements or SOPs, that should actually happen post the counting of the election results.
With a slight modification. As I said, general applicable matters relating to all the taxpayers in the country, it could be announced, but in any specific sector, it is better to avoid till March 11th or so.
A quick final question, sir. For instance, personal income tax. If the government were to announce some radical changes in personal income tax, would that fall foul of the model code of conduct and the Lakshman Rekha as per what you've just told us?
In my opinion, it should not find foul, because it is a matter applicable throughout the country, and in respect of which the central government has got the powers to introduce the budget. I would say that should not apply. Model code of conduct cannot apply to the tax rates of direct taxes. Well, if you have indirect taxes relating to farm sector or any specific sector, perhaps it's worthwhile to defer it till March 11th.
Mr. Krishnamurthy, such a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18 and helping us understand what this Lakshman Rekha could be and how we could perhaps move things along on this front. I also caught up with